Jason Briscoe.
Present.
Joe Crockett. Present. Dan Sherrill.
Present.
Johnny Savage.
Present.
Dan Roberts. Rick Griffin.
Present.
Tina Taylor.
Present.
Wayne Combs.
Present.
You have a quorum.
All right. Department reports. Department heads. Luke?
We're kind of wrapping up our legislative audit. I did talk to the auditor today. The only findings that we will have will be repetitive from last year. Nothing really out of the ordinary. We are still working on our disaster recovery plan, of which they have kind of given us a little bit more lead, so that way we know how they're wanting it to sound. So once we get that done, we should be good. And everything else was up to par. Good as far as legislative audit goes. We're getting ready to start our water audit next week. So that will be coming around full circle. And also I am going to need, and I don't know if this involves at this point in time, I'm going to need an account and a budget approval to pay for the last election that we had.
Yeah, those big.
Yes, sir. $5,323.13.
All right, we missed the approval of the minutes. You have
These
last
should be minutes.
meeting minutes in front of you. Have you reviewed them yet or not, or had the opportunity to?
Move for approval. Second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Any other department heads have anything they need to address?
At the HTD, the state aid from Virginia, covered here.
Earlier this year, we had applied to the Arkansas Highway Transportation Department for some funding through the State Aid for Cities program. What we had submitted, and we got approved, we had submitted 5 roadway overlay projects that are currently in the Red Book. Those are approved. They've gone out to bid. They received the bids yesterday. The maximum funding that's available from the state aid program to a city in any given round of projects is $250,000. The total amount that they've estimated based on the bids received is $281,000. That leaves a contribution from us of approximately $31,000. These are all based off of unit prices, so when construction finishes, it could be a little bit more, a little bit less. These projects were allocated in the Red Book at a total of about $210,000. So what we had planned on paying $210,000 for, we're looking at $31,000. We had hoped they would come in under the $250,000 and we would pay nothing, but we're looking at that $31,000. I don't have that officially in the street department budget for this year. They're looking for us, yay or nay, on whether we'll contribute the extra $31,000 or if we need to cut some of the projects down. My preference would be to go ahead and contribute the $31,000 since we had already planned.
Or you want to take that out of the street department budget, or want to take that?
It'll be infrastructure. I mean, it will be infrastructure, but we list everything in the street department budget from infrastructure. And just on that note, we had planned about $48,500 to go to some sidewalk projects that are associated with a Safe Routes to School grant that we've received. That project seems to be stuck right now. So I think that $48,500 is going to end up being pushed to next year anyway. So as far as the total bottom line on the street department budget, this would have pretty zero effect unless we're lucky enough for them to get moving on those Safe Routes projects. So I don't know.
We need a motion to approve that $31,000 out.
Correct.
Out of the street department. So moved.
Second. Motion and a second to approve spending of the $31,000 to match the grant for the overlays. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Anyone else have any comments from the department heads, or anybody have any questions for them? Committee reports. Community, Environment Services and Welfare.
No report, Mayor.
Finance.
We will have an item come up, I think, after we get through with the reports.
Internal Affairs. Public Safety. Public Works and Transportation.
No.
Resources and Policy.
We have one coming up on the resolution.
Ordinances and resolutions. Police and fire will have sent sales tax ordinance.
Okay, just previous to this meeting, it's been called now, we had discussion on this, and at this time I'd make a motion that we place this ordinance by title only on its first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to place the Hempstead sales tax ordinance on its first reading by title only. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
An ordinance providing for the levy of a 0.5% sales and use tax within the city of Harrison for the fire and police departments.
I make a motion that we suspend the rules and place this on its second and third reading at this time.
A second.
A motion to suspend the rules, place the ordinance on its second and third reading by title only.
By title only.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
An ordinance providing for the levy of a 0.5% sales and use tax within the city of Harrison for the fire and police departments.
Make a motion to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion to adopt in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
So,
It doesn't deal with your election, special election issue.
at this time, we need that ordinance so we get that.
Oh, we've got one.
Okay.
So,
At this time, I would make a motion that we place an ordinance to call a special election on its first reading by title only.
Second.
You haven't, the model that we had didn't, I don't know that we had a date set on there. Y'all were talking about August.
August 12th.
Does this have to be in August? Could it not be with the city, or with the school board election?
It can be whatever
Election, or
Whatever y'all want it to be, it can be with, we have to at least have 60 days notice to the clerk and the election commission. And I think that's where the August date comes up, because we would just be ahead of the 60-day time period to do it in August. You have the general election in October, and you have, of course, basically any other month possibility. It would have to be on the second Tuesday of the month.
Tuesday the 12th. August 12th.
August 12th.
Have a motion and a second? All right.
Yes.
To place this ordinance on its first reading by title only. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
An ordinance calling for a special election, August 12, 2014, to consider the matter of a 0.5% sales and use tax.
Make a motion, we suspend the rules, place this ordinance on its second and final reading by title only.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to suspend the rules, place this ordinance on its second and third reading by title only. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move for adoption.
I need to read it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Just a little technicality. An ordinance calling for a special election, August 12, 2014, to consider the matter of a 0.5% sales and use tax.
Now move for adoption.
Second.
A motion and a second for adoption. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
New business. Overpayment on police officer pension. You guys discussed that in the committee meeting a couple of weeks ago? I think so. Dan, was that finance committee that handled that? The overpayment of the police officer pension?
Yes.
Well, I thought that was pretty well handled.
Well, in committee, but then we'll
No.
No action was taken on it.
No.
All right, fund request for equipment repair. Wade?
I'd actually like to request that we table this item for the time being.
Transmission.
We did some in-house work to try and extend the life of this transmission. It seems to be working pretty well right now. So we just assume not spend the money and try and get as much out of it as we can. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Wade.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Wade.
Concert event in the park. Commissioner Paul, I believe that's you.
Yes, sir. As many of you know, we have concerts down the park. We had one recently. I was given notice 2 days before it started. The problems we're having is this concert and many others play until midnight or later. We receive multiple phone calls about loud noise. I do personally believe midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning until late, we playing music down our park for our citizens. Also, we have these concerts come in, there is no law enforcement or hired security or license just for security of the event. I would like this council to think about drafting an ordinance that when these things happen, they either have law enforcement there for security or licensed security guards, and we have a cutoff time for loud music in the park for concerts. And something that I know the chamber, they cut off at 10 o'clock and over at 11, and I think that's real reasonable, 11 p.m. personally, but I'd like to have your thoughts about that. But we received a ton of phone calls, and every time we have concerts down there, when they get to be that 11, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, our phones start ringing. So now our officers have to respond down there to try to get them to turn off when they should be out actually handling calls.
I just wondered if we regulate this for the Parks and Rec,
We tell them at 10 o'clock.
does the Parks and Rec have a,
We don't, I mean,
Well-
it's always been down there in the park, it's always been 10 o'clock, for concerts. And we tell them that the loud music, it doesn't make any difference if it's churches with a preacher or what the situation is. We tell them 10 o'clock is the cutoff. Now then, whether or not it's not put on the form, but they are verbally told. And if they run any later than that, I can't, I don't know that.
And
But,
the police can't decide them without an ordinance.
We're trying to figure a way to stop them. That's a problem.
yeah, well, I mean, that'd be a good way to do that. That's fine. But, I mean, the Parks Commission, we've talked about it multiple times in the past. And, I mean, we just verbally tell them, if they're having a concert. So much of the stuff that happens is church-oriented things, but, they supposedly aren't staying very late, they're getting done at 9, 10 o'clock, so. And I don't know which particular one you were talking about.
This last one was the Diesel Fest. We finally went down there after 12 o'clock and told them to cut it off. This last one last weekend that we had.
Was that the one we had the campers, was going to have
Trying to
campers
camp down there, yeah, and they were told we couldn't camp, yes.
Yeah. But they were told 10 o'clock also.
Yeah.
I just wondered if we work something through you and the Parks and Rec to make up
All you have to do is tell us what time you want it, and the Parks Commission, I'm pretty sure, will put that in there.
Well, 10 o'clock, I mean, I think 11 is late for some, it is right time for somebody, but we can work that out however the council would like. And
The only issue Paul has is there's no teeth in it, there's no penalty involved unless there's an ordinance.
It needs to be an ordinance to enforce it.
Chief, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
I recommend we go ahead and do an ordinance at the top of the band. We need the time restriction and the security requirement both in this ordinance, correct?
I would like to either have law enforcement there to provide security for our citizens or a paid security company. I believe you know how concerts are, and we don't need any more problems. We just had a guy down there in the fight yesterday with a gun, in the park.
They need to
It's a
be,
common thing down there lately, and we need have some security down
If
there.
you have 200 people down there, there needs to be security.
they need to be trained security and certified security.
Yes, I think they need, if they're gonna have security force, they need to be licensed security guards and a security company, I believe.
But we probably need some guidelines on what is a concert, whether it's a church service or whether it's, you know, it'd be good, you know, if we have that so we can hand them something and say this, where do you fit in this? If it's a church service, you know, church family thing, you know, that's a little bit different than a concert.
And I agree with that to a point. Problem is, it may start off to be a church function, but then we have our people that come into it that are not there as members of the church, as a criminal and went to get us problems. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm not actually worried about the church. I'm worried about the other groups that show up to prey on them as victims.
What if you do it with one, you're gonna have to do it with all the same?
I just wonder, you know, you got like the chamber, how late do they play down there?
They cut off that.
I think that they try to get it done at 10 o'clock. I believe that's what they try to do because they don't want it to go very late either.
And they do have law enforcement down there, and they pay for law enforcement both, too. So we provide law enforcement at city cost, and they pay to have law enforcement down there.
I'd kind of recommend that you work it, we do need ordinance, but work a little bit with Parks and Rec, so.
I'll agree with that, but I feel that we need to have a time restriction of 10 o'clock, and then working with John and the mayor and whoever else needs to make a decision, we may need an exemption clause in it where we as a council can exempt the particular event. Should it be necessary to go to 11 or whatever.
There are 4 or 5 details that you all have mentioned that before we actually put the words in the ordinance, either a committee or somebody needs to get together, whether it's all of you as a whole or whatever. I would need a lot of help, like the hour, and if you want flexibility in it, under what circumstances do you adjust this and consider somebody staying there till 10:30 or 11? Defining it, instead of just saying this is dealing with concerts, you all touched on the fact that we would need to know, is this all kinds of events? Is there an exception to that? And then the other thing is, of course, it's pretty easy. I can write the penalty clause and make it a misdemeanor and put fine and cost in for the violation of this. That would give some authority to the police department to enforce it.
I'd make a motion that we table this until our committee meeting 2 weeks from now so we can have some information on what we need to put in there.
Well, I'll second that motion. If you open, you can open.
And will I be able to maybe meet with the Parks Commission and get their input, John, or?
We're having a meeting
If that would help.
Week from Monday, I believe.
19th.
A motion and a second to send this to the committee to discuss. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
That's all I have this evening. Anybody have any?
Mayor, since we discussed this issue about Albert Dillon's pension bill, he's here and I think he wants to address the council tonight.
I've been under the weather, so I may not be able to hear me very well. What the deal is in 1982, I came to work for the Harrison Police Department. And at that time, we had the Harrison pension system. In '84, I resigned and went back to Houston, Texas. In 1990, I came back to Harrison. Sometime in '83 or '84, Arkansas passed any police officer hired would have to go into the Lothy retirement system. So when I came in '90, I was automatically put into Lothy. Around about '95, I found out that since I was already in the old system, I could get back in. So I went to the pension board and they agreed to let me in it. But I had to pay back what I drew out from 82 to 84, plus pay in what I would have paid from 84 to 95 with 6% interest. So that was approved and everything. So then I went back into the old system. Well, I retired from the old system in 2007, I think it is, with 20 years. At that time, I stayed with the police department, but I was considered in Lofty again. So now I'm back in Lofty. Well, in 2012, Lofty showed me with 10 years retirement from 90 to 95 and 07 to 12. So I decided to take a retirement, which I did. 2 years later, Lofty comes back and says, from 1990 to 1995, you were in both systems illegal. You cannot do that. During that time, the city continued to make contributions to Lofty in the amount of $14,000. When they decided that I had been in both systems, they cut my retirement by 5 years, $700 a month, which they said they had overpaid me $17,000, which I have to repay back. So what John Neal, who's on the Lofty board, suggested was, since the city had already paid in the $14,000 for my retirement, and Lofty already has it, which Lofty has to pay it back to the city because they illegally collected it, that the city apply that $14,000 to the $17,000 that I overpaid, which actually, it's not going to cost the city anything. The money's already down there. So what we were asking is the council to approve that $14,000 be applied to the $17,000 that I owe them back. That's what it was. But it's not going to cost the city nothing. That's it. Thank you.
Mayor, I believe we have one issue from Finance Director Arnold we need to deal with about special election. Is that something we've got to do tonight?
And if it's up to you all, I will just go ahead and create a new account to add that to. I just want you to approve that additional expenditure into the budget as a line item, as an additional line item. We owe it, we have to pay it, it's incurred. I would just add another account number and a line item for that particular.
You take that all out of yours.
Whatever you want me to take it out of accounting, that's
It's 5,500.
53.
23. Won't that just roll and move to the end of the year when we adjust the total budget?
It could. That's not the way budgets are actually supposed to work. You're supposed to actually update your budget as we go. We do that. Our legislative auditors are kind enough to let us get by with that. But for something like this, I would rather have that approval up front.
I make a motion that we allow our finance director to add this amount to a new line item and approve it. Second. Be paid.
Motion and a second to add this to a new line item and being paid to the county. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
That's all I have tonight, gentlemen. Anybody in the audience have anything tonight?
Move for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carried.